Over the month of March, I discovered one of the worst horror movies ever made, probably, and at the same time, one of the best horror movies ever made. So it was a very 50-50 kind of month. Welcome back everyone to another video here on this channel, Royal Horror. I know I haven't posted for a while, but as I've said many times in the past, I'm currently in second year of film school, so as you can know by how that sounds, I'm really busy like all the time with shootings, coursework and stuff, but when I have a time to film a video, I immediately try to do it because it's something that I love doing. So, especially this kind of videos, because I get to talk about different kind of movies, horror and non-horror. And trust me when I tell you that this month in March, I discovered many kind of mixed movies. I discovered foreign movies, some American movies that are really bad, some are really good. So I cannot wait to talk about them at the same time that with series. In case you didn't know the formula that I do for these videos, and so this video is not too long, I will try my best to not make this video long for your sake and for the sake of me editing this. So I'm gonna talk about the series quite briefly, especially one series that it really surprised me and I'm obsessed with that series. And when it comes to the movies, I'm gonna separate it into non-horror and horror. Non-horror, I will just mention the movies that I've been watching, and maybe I will talk about a bit deep between two movies, let's say. And when it comes to the horror movies, I will separate them into different groups. So the first group will be movies that are from like half star to like 2 stars, let's say. And the second group will be like movies that are between 2.5 stars and 3 stars. The third group will be movies that are between 3.5 stars and 4 stars. And the last group is like the best movies of the month. Those will be the movies between 4.5 stars and 5 stars. And at the end of the video, I will say my favorite and least favorite series and movies that I watched over the month of March. So, to kick off this video, the series that I watched, non-horror series, the first one will be Grey's Anatomy Season 18. As you know, it's one of my favorite series like ever. Season 18, like we're really deep into this series. This series started in 2005 and I'm obsessed. But I do have to say that I think it's time to stop making this because the last few episodes of this season really struggled to keep the storyline, and I don't want to give the spoilers obviously, but after the last episode I think they shouldn't make more of this series because I think it's gonna drag and I think it's gonna become really repetitive, so I think we can move on. And the other non-horror series that I watched, don't talk to me. If you want, you can block me.
You're done. You're done.
Because I watched Love Struck High, and I know this was so bad, this was rubbish. I don't know why I watched this. Probably the only reason why I watched this is because Lindsay Lohan is a narrator and she like talks about Mean Girls throughout the whole season, let's say. But I wouldn't recommend watching this. Maybe if you're a fan of Lindsay Lohan, give it a go, but it's really, really bad. And the other two horror series that I watched, and maybe this is not too horror, but it's thriller, and that will be You, Season 4. And I didn't like this at all, and the main reason why I didn't like this is because it's lacking the energy and like the spark that the first 3 seasons had, if that makes sense. This doesn't feel like a You season, this feels like a completely different synopsis for a completely different series. This doesn't belong to You, to be honest. Love is missed, of course, and I struggle to finish this series, and I don't know if I'm hyped to watch the next season and the last season, because if it continues to what we saw on this series, on this season, I'm just not hyped at all. And the last series that I want to talk about is Swarm. Swarm from 2023, directed by Donald Glover and Adama. Stay correct, a young woman's obsession with a pop star starts taking a really, really dark turn. First thing that I want to say about Swarm is that go and watch this completely blind, and I'm sure you're gonna enjoy this series. I personally loved it. I think it's one of the best products that we have received in 2023. The whole commentary behind this series is amazing because that's something that really happens out there, and it's really, really scary. People being obsessed over singers and like people changing their life because of the singers that they love, and that's not something healthy. I think that's really, really toxic because at the end of the day, the singers, the famous people, they eat and drink just like you know, they live and they will die. So I don't think people should change their behavior around other people just because of an idol, if that makes sense. We all have different idols, we all have different artists that we love, but I don't think that you should allow them to control your life. And I think Swarm treats that so perfectly, and it's based in true events. Even though it's not like purely based on true events, some episodes or like some characteristics from like the real events take place here, and I think you can watch this in one sitting. I watched this personally in 2 days because each episode is like 30 to 40 minutes, so it's really easy to watch. It's gorgeously stunning, the cinematography is perfect. We have Billie Eilish acting on this and she did a fantastic job. I think she should start doing more horror roles or thriller roles because she really killed it on this series. The end of this series also was really not horrifying but really dark, and I think that was beautiful too. So I would really recommend this, especially if you are into like a social commentary in horror or thriller. The next part of this video is the non-horror films. So I'm just gonna mention briefly the films that I've been watching, and if I want to talk about some of these movies I will start doing it, but I will leave my letterboxd ranking and review of the films that I mentioned as I talk. So the first film that I watched is Taxi Driver. This was in film school. I personally didn't like this. I think it's very toxic, and I don't understand the hype between this film. I also rewatched Snakes on the Plane. What can I say? Pure cheesiness. I loved it. The other film that I watched for the first time was Triangle of Sadness. I personally didn't like this, just the last act. Murder Mystery, the one in Netflix, and let me just say that I do prefer these over Glass Onion, and I don't know if I should do a video comparing them because they're really pretty much similar films, but I think Murder Mystery, even though it's way less here and it's obviously it's a bad film, but I think it was funnier and more entertaining than Glass Onion. I also watched Lives as We Know It, and as you see by my letterboxd, this is like the only straight love storyline that I stand. I also watched the new Shazam, the new Ant-Man, and I also watched for the first time in film school Moonlight, and you will be surprised by the ranking, and maybe this ranking will change as I rewatch the film. But the only thing that I didn't like about this film is just that I wish when creators have like a lot of money to make queer movies, I just wish they wouldn't be related to trauma, if that makes sense. I also watched Atomic Blonde, such a good action film, and I've been rewatching all of the Fast and Furious film, and over the month of March I rewatched Fast and Furious 1, 2, 4 and 5, and maybe I will do a ranking of this franchise even though it's non-horror, but it's my favorite action franchise, so I might do that. And now, like I said before, we're gonna start talking about the horror films, and the first category is like movies from half star to like 2 stars. So these are like the bad films, let's say. And the first one will be Unwelcome, released at the beginning of 2023, even though this movie was announced in summer of 2022. Now, what can I say about this film? This is like one of the worst films that I've seen at least in the last 5 years, and I was really excited to watch this because I thought it was gonna combine comedy and horror, but honestly it doesn't do any of those. The cinematography is horrible, acting is so bad, lighting is so much like I'm trying to understand if this was on purpose or not, but I personally didn't like this film at all. If you did, because I've seen a few people liking it, please let me know why and stuff so I can read different opinions than mine. And I also watched for the first time Men. Yes, I'm late to the party, but I'm glad I was late because oh my god, this film, I hated it so damn much because it's like this movie is trying to do something and it's like what, like the audacity that this film has to talk about women when it's like women are more than trauma, and like not a single woman was involved in the production of this film, so I'm glad I was late into this party. The only thing that saves this film is the cinematography, because this movie is stunningly gorgeous. So, but that's the only thing, because the rest absolutely sucks. I also watched 65 and A Spoonful of Sugar. Both films are like 1 star, nothing much to say. I also watched Tau. This is like, the main reason why I watched this is because of Micah Monroe. But honestly, even though the concept was good, I just didn't like it because I think the movie was repeating itself way too much. And the last film of this category and that I want to talk about is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Now, everything that you heard about this film is true. Everything wrong that you have heard or read in Twitter or Instagram, that's true. This film is honestly one of the worst films that I've seen ever. And honestly, I was not excited about it. I was not hype about it. But I was not expecting a masterpiece by any means, of course. But I just was expecting something that made sense, because just because you have a low budget, just because you are like a horror movie or a slasher movie based on a kid's storyline, it doesn't mean that you have the right to be bad. Just the storyline itself, it was so annoying, because I think this movie was calling the audience stupid, because the movie was expecting us to believe that the killers were actual animals, when the killers just looked like two big guys with cheap masks. And I honestly didn't like that, because I hate when movies try to tell me that I'm stupid or dumb, when it's like I can see the stuff in the movie, you know? The only thing that saves this film is the cinematography, because it's not about looking film, and it's such a shame because they could have done something so much better. And the kills, some of the kills were a bit creative. I liked some of the gore, even though some blood looked really bad. This category is like from 2.5 stars to 3 stars. On those films will be, the first one will be Follow Me, and you will see this movie in an upcoming ranking. I also watched Tailgate. This is a foreign film. Again, you will see this in an upcoming ranking. I also rewatched Scream 5, and you will be surprised, well, because I used to give this movie 4 stars and now this movie is 3 stars. And it's because I think this movie is aging so bad, but I will talk more about it on my Scream ranking franchise. So stay tuned for that video. And finally, I watched one of my most anticipated films, and that will be Infinity Pool. Now, with Infinity Pool, I was really hyped about this film, and I'm sure I'm gonna give this movie a higher rate as soon as I rewatch this. But with only one watch, I have to say that the first act is beautiful. The first act is really strong. The storyline is very unique, original, kind of disturbing in a sense. But as soon as the middle act hits, and as soon as the last act hits, this movie, it becomes a completely different film, and it becomes a little bit generic. And I didn't appreciate that. I wish the movie kept going what was happening in the first half. And I think what saves this movie is Mia Goth. I absolutely loved her in this film. She did such an amazing job. I do wish she was like the main lead instead of like one of the antagonists, if that makes sense. And the next category will be the films that are between 3.5 stars and 4 stars. So these are like pretty good, like really high films for me. And the first one will be one of the newest films of this year, and that will be Unseen. Now, I have to say that I loved this movie so much, because it's such an inspiration for like filmmakers that are beginners like me, let's say, because this storyline is so simple, and also, but the movie is executed so well, because the way the two characters get to be connected, I think that was really clever. I also love the editing. I think the editing helps so much this movie to tell the storyline. Also the dialogue, the script, it felt real, like I will react like one of these girls, mainly the blind woman, because I'm just like her. When I don't have glasses, I just don't see anything and get really scared. So I really felt what she was feeling, let's say. And at the same time with the other character, because the other character was really anxious, that she was working in like grocery store, she had to deal with a Karen, and it's like I've done that in the past. So it's like, it's nice to see those kind of characters. And at the same time, I love the leads. I think they were kind of different, unique, and I love how the movie ends. The color grading is one of the, like, so far it's one of the most gorgeous films from this year. I also watched for the first time Blood Red Sky, as you can see on my letterbox. I also watched for the first time Red Eye, as you can see on my letterbox review. And I also watched 3 times Scream 6, and I will talk about this film in upcoming videos, like the Scream franchise ranking, and also I will try to make the video of comparing Scream 6 to Scream 2 and maybe Scream 6 to Scream 5 for my look-alike horror movies and for my horror movie videos. And finally, the last category are like the best movies of the month, because these movies are 4.5 stars and 5 stars. And the first film, I've rewatched this film for like the millionth time. That will be Scream 4. I will like explain more about it on my upcoming ranking. I also watched for the first time Missing, and this film was absolutely amazing. What can I say about it? I think the storyline was so rich. I think the script was also very rich. They felt so real. I loved how my country's name, Colombia, is used in such a smooth, easy way. Like, it's not cliches at all. Nothing. Like, the characters just happen to go to Colombia. I love how the plot twist comes after plot twist after plot twist, and you don't see any of the plot twists coming, at least with my opinion. With Searching, I saw some of the plot twists coming, but with Missing, I didn't see any of them. The acting was phenomenal. I think the main actress, like the lead teenage, I think she's making her name into horror, and I'm really excited to see her in the Nun too. So overall, I would really recommend this film. Go completely blind, and I would recommend watching this like in your laptop with your headphones, because it will hit you differently and you will experience something different. I also rewatched Final Destination 1, obviously my favorite horror franchise ever. And finally, the last film that I watched over the month of March will be A Careful Wellness. Now, this is one of the best horror movies that I've seen, at least in the last 6-7 years, let's say, because absolutely stunning. I think the cinematography is one of the most perfect cinematographies that I've seen in horror. The acting was phenomenal. The storyline was so rich, so rich, as slightly disturbing, because if this could happen in real life, I know it could happen, and we don't even know if it's happening. This movie made me realize once again why I chose filmmaking as my degree, because like some of the shots communicated with me so well. The acting, just every single act was so well done. Just in the last act, I didn't need to see that scene because I don't think that was needed. So that's why this movie is 4.5 stars and not 5. But overall, one of the best pieces of art that I've seen in horror. And now what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna say like the best 2 horror movies over the month of March, and like the list, or like the 2 worst horror movies that I watched over the month of March. Now, the 2 worst movies that I watched over the month of March will be Unwelcome and Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And the main reason is because those movies just don't make sense to me. And the best horror movies that I watched over the month of March, I will have to give it to A Careful Witness, obviously, because it's stunning, one of my favorites. And also, you will be surprised, but Blood Red Sky. And the main reason why I'm saying that this is one of the best movies of the month is because I love when planes are used perfectly in horror, and I think the plane in these movies, the landscape, is used so perfectly, and the blood and the gore just looked so good. So that was it. Those were the movies that I watched and the series that I watched over the month of March. If you like them, please let me know in the comment section below. I would love to read what you have watched over the month of March, because I would love to discover new stuff for my watch list. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you have a nice end of the week, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.